Yeah, I picked a good time to shop at Woolworths. Just after 2, it's pretty quiet actually. They have made a change though. They've got an in and out line from the supermarket just to basically control the flow of people a little better. But apart from that, it's exactly the same, no change. Reasonable number of shoppers inside, but gee, the actual town itself was very dead when I walked in here. Deader than usual, and that's saying something. So yeah, very quiet. And one thing I did notice too, that there's actually a little cafe on the corner just opposite there. On that corner, that's actually open for business, and I noticed that there was a restaurant with a menu out front. So I think maybe they're relaxing some of these restrictions. So that's interesting. I've got to ask the checkout chick about that. It's a bit hard now because I've got the bloody plastic perspex between you. I wonder if that'll be removed when this is all over, or they'll just leave it on permanently. That's one of those questions I don't know will be answered. So, but hopefully it's a sign that they are easing those restrictions on trading for restaurants and the like. That's pretty rough on the people in that industry, so fingers crossed things are getting a little closer to normality. It's hardly normal, but it's a little better than what it has been, so hopefully that's the case. Very windy today, so I won't do too much recording, and just going to head back home and hibernate because I'm here. It's actually Thursday is going to be busy because it's the day before Good Friday, so I thought I'd better get my my shopping done today. So it's all organised, got plenty of food at home, so I can bunker under for about 4 days I suppose, so it's going to be a fairly long break. So still might go out and have a wander, but I won't be doing any shopping for a few days. Got enough grog to tide me over, that's the main thing. So yep, but it's quiet today. It's very quiet. It feels like Good Friday. Well, this is my first time out of the apartment for 3 days. It's quite a marathon. It's Sunday morning, around 9 o'clock in Cairns. Slight breeze, which is good, so I can do some recording. I've been contemplating doing some videos, but I never get round to it. And I realised what I've got to do is actually script my videos. These walk and talks, it's fine. I can just do ad hoc stuff off the top of my head. I feel more comfortable doing it this way when I'm just raving, but to do a more formalised type of video, I actually just saw someone's video, a guy who I think his name's Chappell. He's I forget his first name. I just subscribed to the channel because they were very well done, and they were obviously scripted, tightly scripted, and the quality showed. And the guy's got a huge number of subscribers, and also a number of viewers just with this one he just recently put on, which was about topical. It was about the change from dominance by America and China in 2020 globally to other countries. Specifically, in this case, he was predicting that India, Vietnam and Mexico would be the new super powers when it comes to manufacturing. And so that was an interesting video. He'd obviously done some research on this. I can certainly attest to the fact that Vietnam is going ahead, and as I said, my big screen TV was actually manufactured in Vietnam, so that's something close to home, just proving how things are changing. I've certainly noticed that they're more affluent in Saigon over time, because I've been able to take a snapshot over a period of about 15 years, and I can attest to the fact that they are going ahead. It's not just, I mean, there's obviously things like their bus fleet has been upgraded. It used to be old clankers. Now they're quite reasonable sort of mini buses, and they're fine. They're as good as maybe not. No, they're pretty well similar to what you get here. I wouldn't say they're inferior. They're fine. They do need mass transit. That's one thing they desperately need in Saigon, and they are working on it, but they don't have the funds. So that's one area where they're not first world. But they're making progress. The other one he mentioned was India, and I tend to agree that India is doing rather well, and they've got, especially in high tech, you know, they're good on IT and things like that. I've seen a couple of people walking around today. Things are actually definitely on the improve by the looks of things. I've been monitoring closely online the progression of government's reactions to coronavirus, and things like apparently the NRL is actually going to starting their season late, but they're going to have a season where they're just playing each team once in the rugby league, and apparently there's talk of the AFL resuming contests as well, and I think that's all good. I think this is what's got to happen. These people are a low risk cohort. They're very fit people, they're young, and they're not people that you need to worry about as such with corona. It's just crazy. So I think that's really smart, and I think some sandy's starting to come back now, because people I really feel sorry for, people in the service industries who are waiters, and you know, it's just making, you know, not big money, but they've really been affected by all this. That if you're cutting back bars and the restaurants, you're really hurting the vulnerable people in our society, and that's something that really is bad. And like I say, meanwhile, public servants and politicians still get the same pay packets. I just don't think that's right. So just thinking across, I was actually going to go. Good thing I didn't cross against the lights just then, because there was a cop car and in my eyesight I didn't even see that. I've heard a lot of sirens lately. I don't know whether they're basically making sure everybody's doing the right thing or whatever, as far as social distance is concerned. Or apparently there has been some crime, although I would have thought that home crime would be down, but because people are home, you know, so you can't, there'd be less chance of burglaries, for instance, but and less car thefts, things like that. They're pretty big up here apparently, but maybe not. Well, major things happening there, major renovations, that place. Anyway, I'm heading off to Woolworths, so this is an essential trip. It's a legit one, because I've got to get my greens, get some potatoes, and more importantly, Indian tonic water for my gin. I can't have gin without Indian tonic water, that would be sacrilege. So I've got to get that. It's a beautiful day. It's still, it's sunny, it's not too hot, although it was warm. It's we had a bit of a cool patch about half a week ago, maybe a week ago, but it's actually warmed up again. But certainly in June it'll get a lot cooler, and I'll actually, if I was walking at this time of day, I'd probably be wearing a wind cheater. But not yet, it's still pretty warm. So it's quite pleasant, very quiet to be expected. It is a Sunday morning, but it's not that, it's around 9 o'clock, it's not like that early. But people are obviously not as out and about as they were. So good time to shop, I reckon. You just get those essentials. But yes, my prediction, it seems like my predictions are coming to fruition to some degree. It looks like that easing of restrictions is starting to come into the picture, because you know, the long-term economic damage we do to the nation with ballooning unemployment queues and things like that, it's you know, something that they need to gradually open up these restrictions, allow some trading with people in service industries to get people back to some normal lifestyle. And you know, as I said, we could have actually avoided a bit of the pain by being much more decisive initially, cutting out people returning from overseas or putting them into quarantine straight away, as we're doing now. If we'd done that earlier, it would have been better. But Australia's actually done pretty damn well, actually, overall. I mean, you look at the glaring exceptions, which is the cruise ship that they allowed the passengers to disembark. That should never have happened. That was against the regulations, and the health minister in New South Wales is trying to cover his ass, but I think I think it's just disgraceful. There's got to be some ministerial responsibility, I think. But anyway, that's that was a total stuff-up, but that's luckily that's the exception rather than the rule. And things seem to be going pretty well here. So we've done okay. I think we've only got 32 cases in Cairns, so that's bugger all really. And the other good news is, as more data's coming out, another thing I predicted is that the death rate is going to be reducing, because it's being found that many more people are actually carrying coronavirus than was suspected. And that means that the death rate is much lower amongst people who have contracted it. And that's what I thought might happen. So it's getting closer to a normal flu if you look at those figures. If you look at the figures of people who are actually infected and the ones that are severely affected and people who have died, those figures are getting closer to what a normal flu would be. But we didn't know that before. We were flying blind and we were being cautious, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But we need to pivot away from that ASAP so we don't have long-term economic damage done to the country. It's important too. So it's a real balancing act. So there's the empty entertainment centre. No action there. Yeah, it will be nice for things to get back to a normal state. Hopefully that'll be the case. More likely in about a month's time. We'll be look at this as just a blip, although in the case of China it won't be just a blip. It's going to be long-term damage that's been done to them, because there's a lot of companies pulling out of China and they're not going to go back. And I think it's great, because it's going to put so much pressure on the communist regime over there that maybe some real political reform can finally take place. There's another thing to remember also about this Chinese situation. It's you know, it's an ill wind that blows no good. What is been good for the Chinese Communist Party is that all those Hong Kong protests have stopped, because people are now indoors and they can't gather in public. But once those restrictions have been lifted, we could be in for some mass protests in China, because I'm sure it's not just the West that are unhappy with the Chinese government. I'm sure there's plenty of Chinese who are also less than thrilled with them. And I think there's going to be lots of internal pressure in that country. Who knows where it's going to go? I have no inside information. I've just got a feeling that that this is not going to be something they can just sweep under the carpet. Remember, Chernobyl led to the demise of the USSR. I see no reason why this coronavirus fiasco may end up the same way. That it's going to have major political ramifications for the Chinese Communist Party. So I wouldn't want to be the leader of that country right now. I think he's in for a bit of a tough run, and good luck getting over that, because I think he's when the unemployment goes up, because people have had to shut their shops just like in the West, and they have no income. People begin to starve. People get very angry and very desperate, and it doesn't matter how repressive the regime is. If they've got nothing to lose, they will rebel, and that could well happen in China. Chinese people are generally pretty obedient, but you can only push certain people so far, and they may be beyond that point now. So we'll see how it all plays out. But as I say, Hong Kong, you watch them return to the streets in Hong Kong after this, they've got even more incentive to break away from China. And I can see the Japanese have actually been some of the most decisive with pulling out of China, and Japan may even decide to beef up their military presence against the threat from China. So there's going to be a lot of forces against China. China's going to be quite isolated, and I think it's going to be hard for the ruling government to distance themselves from their initial incompetence at dealing with this virus outbreak. That's just my opinion, but that's how I see it currently, and I'm hoping that I really am hoping that there's going to be major political reform over there, because the Chinese people have achieved a level of economic prosperity. They don't have it blown by a despotic government basically turning them into international pariahs. That would not be good. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you think there's anything there of use to you, or entertainment or whatever. And either do that or give me a thumbs up, or if you're feeling really energetic, do both. That'd be great. But please don't ignore me. That's the worst thing you can do on YouTube, is be ignored.